impossible. It started with a dream.
Hello and welcome to our July to December 2022 Mini Catalogue Launch. After keeping it under wraps, secret, for a short while, we are now able to open the cover and expose to you the beautiful products in here. Now I'm going to be using the Leaves of Holly bundle today. It has a beautiful stamp set and the coordinating holly berry dies, some fabulous samples in the catalogue on 2 pages, and here it showcases all of the products contained within the Boughs of Holly collection. The Boughs of Holly designer series paper contains 3 reds and 3 greens from our colour palette in the annual catalogue. For my project today, I'm going to be using this designer series paper here with a variety of festive images and some stripes on the back. Now this is important, I have cut this with the stripes going this way. So I'm going to put that to one side for now. I will also be using some of this gorgeous gold paper. This is the Distress Gold 12" by 12" specialty paper. And for my cardstock, I have chosen Evening Evergreen, which is one of my favourite greens at the moment, Real Red cardstock and Basic White. For my card today, I'm going to be making a Double Easel Fold. So I have my trimmer and I'm going to be taking an A4 sheet of card and I'm going to be cutting it in half lengthways. So this is for the metric users, this is on the 10.5 centimetre. Now I'm going to take this through in metric and we will be using lots of halves. So I will set one piece aside. I'm going to be taking it this way and cutting it in half at 14.85 and taking that aside, taking this remaining piece and cutting it in half. From the 10.5 we will be on 5 1/4, so that's 5.25, cutting that in half and then turning once again and cutting this piece was 14.85, so we actually want this to be 7.4. okay, and I'll cut that in half again. Okay, we will have one piece spare, so I'm going to pop that out of the way for now. And I'm going to take you back to these pieces that I had originally. So our first piece, the long piece, is now going to be scored in half on the 14.85. Now with my customers, I share with them to grab a red Sharpie pen and place a dot on the halfway point for the metric measurements. This makes it a lot easier when you're cutting or scoring in half, and you can simply line it up on one of those dots. So this is my half sheet and I will score that in half like so. Now we also need to make half of this in half again. So if you remember, this was 14.85, so I'm going to score this at 7.4. Okay, so this piece is now folded in half and then in half again. And I have my bone folder here to crease those edges, there and there. So this will form the basis for my easel card. So I'll pop that out of the way. The next panel we cut is going to be a solid panel and that will sit on the front here. So we can take our Tombow now and apply some adhesive around the outside edge. And a scribble in the middle, this piece will fit on the front. One of the simplest folds there is going to do a fold like this. This piece of the single card is actually exactly the same size as the base card and should fit completely over that there. So when this is folded and burnished, this will be our easel card. You can see that there. I'm going to just zoom you out just slightly. And there we go. So it's going to be our easel card. Now for our next easel card, we have the last 2 pieces and we have this piece which we cut in half. So this is also going to be scored at 7.4. I'm going to score that along there, and it's going to be scored in half again. So I want that to be half of 7.4. So half of 7 is 3.5, and then another 2. So it's going to be 3.7 centimetres. So if you don't want to remember those measurements, it's quite simple to just fold it in half, matching the lines up at the end, and score, and fold it in and score again. Okay, and again our mini easel will be adhered around here like so with our tombow, and that will sit on the front. Whether you like to do it in mid-air like this or lay it down flat on the table, you want those edges to all be lined up. Put some pressure on there, and there is our mini easel, and that one will sit inside the other. That is the hardest part done. So I have two cards, an easel and a mini easel. Okay, now we come to a half sheet of our basic white cardstock, and back to our trimmer. Now I'm going to make a layer for both of my full pieces. I want to put a small layer inside. I'm going to cut this at 14.5 centimetres. Discard that. And then this way I'm going to go to 10.2. So what I'm actually doing here is taking my layers down by 3 millimetres. So I will do both of those two the same. So 10.2 and 10.2, and discard the little piece. Okay, so there's our 2 layers. Now I'm going to take a piece of my designer series paper. Now you remember I said this was the pattern side. I'm actually going to be using the stripes at the moment. So I'm going to take this, and this will be cut at 9.9. I want to come just 3 mils down from my last measurement. So I'm going to take this at 9.9 centimetres, and then I'm going to cut this way at 4.2. That one, and then the second one. And take my trimmer away. So we have our 2 pieces of white and our 2 pieces of designer series paper, and I'm just going to check that I've got a nice small border around the edge of both of those, and adhere this down. Such a shame to cover up that beautiful designer series paper, but sometimes we just have to. And don't forget, in your pack of designer series paper you get 2 sheets of each pattern, so you can use the front of one and the back of the other. If you have a big piece like this and you wanted to cut an embellishment out, you could actually cut a die cut or some punches out of the centre of that, as long as you leave that little white surround. So those panels are both ready, and I'm going to now attach one to the front of my card and one to the inside. I love our tombow because it's so versatile, so economical. It's one of my favourite glues of all time. So that is now nicely adhered, and that is the start of our easel card. So here's my mini easel card, and we are going to make up 2 panels for the front of this card. So set that aside. I'm going to cut my white layer, again coming down 3 millimeters on each layer. So this is measuring 5.2 by 7.4. I'm going to come down here to 4.9 by 7.1. Again, working on 3 millimeters for each layer, and I need 2 of those. So 4.9 by 7.1. Repeating the same as before, we've got one for the top and one for the inside. Just check they match, which are lovely. And then my designer series paper. Now I'm going to use this side of the designer series paper this time. So I want to cut my length coming the entire length, and this is going to be 4.6. And then this way at 6.8 twice. 6.8 and 6.8. I find millimeters really easy to work with because they're tiny measurements and you've got more control over those. So for my layers, exactly the same as before, we will match these layers up, check the sizing is good and adhere them down. As the layers get smaller, I resort to my tweezers, my favourite tool. And whilst these ones I use are not Stampin' Up, there is a new product in the mini catalogue I must show you. I hope somebody's going to be using it in our presentations today. It's on page 49. And it is here. It is the Embossing Additions Toolkit. Now we have in here a tray for your embossing powders, a brush to dust them down with, the tweezers which are heat resistant tip, and the dust buddy coming back. So an absolutely fabulous addition when you are heat embossing. So we're now happy to bring both of those two together. We have the outer one and the inner one. To adhere this onto this easel, I need to have some foam pads on the back here. So I have my Stampin' Dimensionals, one in each corner. It's quite springy because it's a raised card, and one in the middle. Now I'm going to hold this with my tweezers and I'm going to set this just inside the front of my card. I want that to be just away from this bottom edge, and I want it to be even left to right. Your grid mat or grid paper is a good rule of thumb for this as well. And then this one will sit on there like so. This one will be held up by this because it is raised. And then this one will be held up with a stop that we will place on here shortly. For one of my embellishments today, I've chosen to use the Stylish Shapes dies. There are 15 dies in this set, and there are 15 in total, ranging in 6 of the circles, 5 of the squares, and 4 banners. So I have used this, and ahead of time I have cut my stitched circle die. The Leaves of Holly bundle has a beautiful plaque with the dies, the holly leaves at the top here. So as you die cut this, it leaves all these filigree images. Again, ahead of time, I have pre-cut this from my distress gold paper. I'm going to use my mat and just rub this over here gently. The die brush is fabulous for releasing all of these tiny little pieces out of here. It's easier to do it with the die still attached. I just wanted to show you how these pieces work. The pricky tool on the end of the Take Your Pick tool can just help to loosen any of those other little pieces, which just add the extra detail. These all come away really nicely. I will be attaching both these layers together, and again I hold these in my tweezers. So I'm holding both layers together so they don't get distorted. And I'm going to apply some Tombow onto the body of the plaque itself. and then some tiny dots along the outside edge. Very, very little. Okay, some of these elements will hang over the edge, so be very careful. And here I just want to put some on these little pieces. Just dot your Tombow across there. Not all of those will reach to the outside edge. So I'm going to place this in the center, and I want these just to be catching on these bottom edges, making sure that these are nicely lined up.
Anything is possible. It started with a dream. Our passion made it.
So most of those images are all nicely adhered, and this is ready to be attached to my base card, but I'm going to build up the rest of this piece before I place it on my card. So my next step is to take a piece of my basic white cardstock, my real red ink pad, and my Christmas Wishes stamp from the Holly set. So I'm going to stamp this on here a few times. Lovely clean image. I'm going to cut that using the die in the Leaves of Holly bundle, placing some scotch tape on here just to hold that in place so that it doesn't move while die cutting. Okay, if you want a couple of pieces, one either end. When using the scotch tape, make sure you get the removable tape, the removable finish, and then it won't pill on your card. So I'm going to bring on my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Move those out of the way, and I'm just going to run that through. The mini machine is one of my favourites. It's perfectly sized, and over 2/3 of the dies will actually go through this baby machine. I'm going to have a piece of my ribbon cut, sticking to my fingers. I'm laying this on my embellishment, and I'm going to take my large scissors and I'm going to cut this at an angle where I want that to be. Okay, so that will fit there. I think my hands must need some hand cream. To adhere this down onto there, I'm going to use my tear and tape. I'm just going to place a piece through the middle. It doesn't have to be the whole length, just enough to hold that in place. And that will just place on there. Just lay that in place without stretching it. These edges are very delicate and they will fray, so do be careful with those. So turning the sentiment over, I will apply some Stampin' Dimensionals to the back. We are sticking onto a fabric, so I've made enough dimensionals to make sure it's really held securely. For my last piece, I have a length of the linen thread. Now I've got very little left on my thread, so I'm going to simply take that whole piece. Just to the size bow that you would like. Now I'm going to take both those ends and cut in half, like so. Sorry, my camera just froze there. So I'm going to tie this again with a bunny ear on this hand, a little loop on that side. I'm using my double length of linen thread, and I will cross that over and just pass that through the middle and bring both those layers through together and tie my bow. Because it's double layer, you want to make sure that you pull all the threads at the same time. So I have 2 there and 2 here. I'm just pulling down this side. And shape your bow as you'd like and to the size that you would like, but the layers can be offset from each other. So to attach a bow on here, I'm going to take one of my mini glue dots, and they are on the paper side here. I find it easier to take my tweezers or my scissor blade and roll up one of those jelly dots into a little sausage, and I'm going to place that where I want that sentiment, the bow to go. Leave that behind, and then I can simply place that on top there, like so. Those tails can be trimmed as you wish, to the length you wish. Not as sharp as scissors, my ribbon scissors are better. That's better. And those ends are loose. I'm going to place it down onto the base of my card here first. I'm going to leave these inside, and again holding this with my tweezers, this will be sitting above where my easel will be. So I have an easel there, and I will be having this above that shape. So when I shut this, I want this to be slightly higher than half. Okay, so that's where it's going to be sitting. Now when you're holding that in position, I sometimes find it easier to take a large paper clip and decide where I'd like that to be. So if I'm going to place that there, this is just holding those layers together, enabling my hands to be free, and that's where I'm going to place it. So the whole of this can be covered with Tombow, including that frame, so just some dots down the frame. Pressing down firmly, it will be a bit lumpy underneath, and then taking away our paper clip. Just helps us keep that level. Okay, so there's our first step, but I will be placing some of those greenery there. Now I've used a couple of these small filigrees here, this one and this one, and I've pre-cut some of those in Mossy Meadow, which is another one of the greens in our beautiful patterned papers in this design. So by pre-cutting these, all I've done is just run them through the mini cut and emboss machine, and I'm going to add some Tombow to the bottom of these, to the back, sorry, and just stretch that over there, spreading that out. If you prefer to use the adhesive sheets, that's another great tool to have.
So just do what you love, live it, share it, you know, it's what you're dreaming of. What we love, what we do, makes a difference in me and you.
And just slide them under there. Because our sentiment is raised on Stampin' Dimensionals, you will find there's room under there to be able to position your pieces. Okay, so that's my front panel done, apart from my sparkles. So now we'll work on this piece down here. Again, to save time, I've cut two of the die pieces. These are the berries, the holly berries, and the distressed gold paper again. So just going to place a little bit of Tombow dotted over the back there. And place over the real red berry base. Okay, just tap those together. And I have, while I was cutting the other filigree pieces, I've cut another solid leaf in Mossy Meadow and another distressed gold leaf. But to attach this on here, I'm going to have this hanging off the edge of my easel, mini easel card. So I'm going to apply Tombow down the rest of this. I'm going to hold my tweezers so I do everything that side of the tweezers. So there's no adhesive under here hanging over. And then these ones, I'm going to raise those onto foam pads again. So all that we need now is a stop here. For my sentiment, I'm using my real red ink pad and one of the smaller sentiments from the Leaves of Holly stamp set. So I've put from Our Home to Yours, which is this one here. It's just the perfect size for the width of this card using the measurements I've done today. I'm going to ink that and place that in the centre. Holding my breath as I stamp. I've got a little smudge on there, so I'm going to clean my stamp and stamp that one again. And that's perfect. I find when I do this, and I've used, I'm going to zoom you in a little bit. I find when I've done this and I've stamped on the back, I don't like this one because there's an ink mark. I cross that through because when you start turning over to put the adhesive, you could be inclined to put the adhesive on the wrong side. So what I'm going to do now is take my snips and I'm going to make a little snip into the middle and make a little banner ends on here. Okay, so I'm going to snip into the centre. Just doing this manually. So I'm just taking from the corner into the middle line. And if you can't work to just a freehand, you could always place a little dot in the centre. So I'm just working that into the centre and then coming in from each corner. And I'm doing this without my glasses on, so I hope for the best. There we go. So there is my sentiment. Ready to go. We just need some sentiment, some dimensionals on the back. So again, use my tweezers. I'm going to cover up those so I know that I'm definitely not using this side. And bring back my card. So this is going to be stood upright. So I want those out of the way for now. I hope you can see me okay. I zoomed in, didn't I? Let me zoom out again. Give you a better view. And I'm going to place this just along the bottom. And it's just reaching the sides, either side there. There we go. So there is my first one on my easel there. That is the stop to make that stop that going any further. I just need to crease those edges again. On there and there and there. Bring that one over and crease that there. I want him to lay nice and flat, so when we pop the easel up, it's there, and when we pop this easel up, it will stop on the back one there, and it's all super duper. Okay, so I think we've nearly finished, apart from adding some bling. And if I bring my previous one on and show you where the bling was applied on there. This was my sample card. So I bring that back and you can see I've applied some nice red rhinestones in the background and on the background here. So you can see on both pieces. So just do this on fast forward and I will be back. So all of those rhinestones have just been placed randomly on there, generally in numbers of 3s. So if I close those, you will see the front layers. So just some random 3 at the top. Oh, only 2 at the bottom. I can add another one there. Randomly. And then on the inside of the card, you have 3 on each of the sides. Okay, with the easel coming up there. Okay, so that's the insides of the cards, and then with the fronts mounted there like so. I do hope you've enjoyed my presentation today for the 2022 July to December mini catalogue launch. Stephanie has done a fabulous job of coordinating all the demonstrators taking part today, and I hope you will enjoy the whole day If you're watching this on replay, then please go back and watch through all of the presentations. I'm sure you'll be inspired by the many presentations today. So be sure to have your wish list written and refer back to the demonstrator who invited you to this collaboration today. If you enjoyed the presentations today, then please click on the like and subscribe button and follow your presenters so that you can be notified when they release another video. Have fun and bye for now.